I want to move on to Fender as a lifestyle brand.
This is where I'm very, very intrigued. To me, what's strange is that they're not absorbing that into their brand entirely across the board to protect and maintain that brand. I don't think it's sustainable long term.
We talked about the success story of Marshall, but I want to talk about the failure of Gibson.
Native Instrument has not innovated in probably a decade, right?
I think it's important to separate the business model that is Native Instruments and the reason why they are in preliminary insolvency. Welcome back to the Time Off Audio Podcast. My name is John.
And I'm Mo.
And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Fender, the new Fender interfaces that were released, the potential goodbye PreSonus, and Fender as a lifestyle brand.
And we're also going to be discussing the recent news of Native Instruments' preliminary insolvency proceedings, as well as some of my thoughts about what that means for audio software consumers and makers.
Let's dive into the episode. Podcast in person.
Yeah, man.
It's nice to have you physically here in front of me. Oh, very, very formal. I like this.
That's nice.
So we're here at the Freak Shop in Montreal. It's a beautiful place. We got some very warm vibes going on here. It's feeling cozy.
Hell yeah.
How are you feeling today?
I'm good, man.
Yeah. Do you feel we just had a huge content shoot? Like literally,
yeah, we're tired, but feeling energized. We just had a little coffee run, so we should be good to go.
Cool. Are you ready to talk about the state of the music industry?
Oh man, am I ever? Is anyone ever? But no, it's I'm curious to see what you brought to us today to discuss.
Well, there's a lot going on. We're not going to discuss some of like the more recent developments with DistroKid, and there's so much going on in the music industry in 2026. I think we're going to have a lot to discuss on this podcast. But for now, we're going to be talking about Native Instruments on your side of things, and then Fender on my side of things. So I'm going to get started with Fender. You read our newsletter, and for anyone who's watching the podcast, we're going to be touching on some of the things that we discussed in the newsletter, and then maybe having more of like an opinionated conversation on those points. So the first of all, on the topic of Fender, I want to just show that I'm repping Fender. By the way, I also have a Gibson t-shirt. So I'm not necessarily like affiliated with one or the other.
Would you say they're your favorite guitar manufacturer? Because I feel I play bass, right? As you know, and there probably are. I mean, for me at least, but I feel like I am more of a Les Paul guy. I have to say, I actually currently own a Telecaster. Nice.
But I just like those humbuckers, you know. And so for like distortion, those humbuckers are necessary.
Right.
But I own a Telecaster.
Okay.
I own a Tele. I still love my Tele. Nice. But that being said, Fender, you have a Fender bass.
Yeah.
I have a Fender guitar.
Yeah.
I think so many of the musicians that we know and love, they swear by this instrument, Fender. It is a household name for anyone in the music industry. And the interesting thing about 2026 is a lot of pivots on the world of Fender. They have moved into audio interfaces, and they have moved into being a lifestyle brand. So I want to talk about the audio interface.
I'm intrigued by the lifestyle bit. Like that's interesting.
So I want to start with the audio interfaces bit. So a couple of years back, 2021, Fender buys PreSonus. That's what, 5 years ago, Fender buys PreSonus. And they were relatively silent for a while, simply waiting, I guess, to see what to do, restructuring, all the things that happen when a company buys another company. And 2026, they released like a total of, I have the number here, but it's something like 8 different audio interfaces. A couple of Elite models, which are just a little bit more prosumer on the prosumer side. And then I believe 3 professional audio interfaces. 32-bit float, 192 kilohertz, and some amp modeling, a bunch of really cool stuff. And it's unclear, but it seems that PreSonus, they're going to start like doing away with the PreSonus brand slowly. I think they're keeping, from what I remember, the speakers and some headphones and maybe certain little peripherals, but based on the trajectory of things, it seems like they're probably going to slowly move away from PreSonus and rebrand everything as Fender.
Yeah.
Now, when I heard this news, I wasn't super sure how I felt about this because I did a little bit of research, and the preamplifiers that are being used inside the Fender Quantum and the Fender. Let me just read what these interfaces are called real quick so that everyone knows. So the interfaces are, we have the Fender Audio Box Go, the Link IO, and then on the prosumer side we have the Quantum LT, which I guess stands for light, Quantum LT2, LT4, and LT16. And then on the more professional side, we have the Quantum HD2 and the Quantum HD8.
All right.
All of these have the PreSonus preamps in them.
But they're Fender branded.
They're Fender branded, but the technology inside is still whatever the PreSonus preamp is called. When I read this news, I felt a little bit odd about it because I don't know about you, but PreSonus doesn't have like the best reputation in the audio.
It's like beginner intro level. I think speaking of interfaces, my very, very first PreSonus interface was like this $100 PreSonus interface, right?
Same.
So
yeah, mine was the PreSonus 1818 VSL or VST, something like that. Right. And I loved that interface.
Yeah.
I have recordings with that interface in the basement of Solon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Blast from the past.
Yeah.
Damn.
But they're not known for being like quality. Like, let's be honest, like no shade for anyone who owns a PreSonus. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. But Fender has positioned themselves as like the professional guitar brand versus like Squier, right? Or like you have a Gibson versus Epiphone. And so now all of a sudden we have this branding where you have like a prosumer product, but that's being labeled Fender. And I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I wonder if it's going to degrade the brand name a little bit. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that front.
Yeah, it's very odd to me as a move. It's hard to think about parallels or similar moves that have been done in other industries. Obviously, I look a lot to the tech world, and for these sort of things. And I think the epitome of a premium brand is Apple, right? And the way Apple moves, they're also consistently and constantly acquiring new companies, right? And even when it doesn't make the news, but with very few exceptions, like with Beats, for instance, they're actually very good at absorbing those acquisitions into their own brand because the brand is so valuable, right? And it's a core piece of what makes Apple Apple. It's their brand. It's like a big part of, their capital, let's say. And in the audio world, I think Fender is quite similar if we want to draw that analogy. So it's strange to me that a company would somewhat compromise or at least kind of muddy the waters around that when acquiring a company like PreSonus, which it's okay if they want to do. I think it makes sense that they want to do it to enter, more like the consumer, like beginner section of the market. But to me, what's strange is that they're not absorbing that into their brand entirely across the board to protect and maintain that brand, right? I think having this fragmentation is odd to me, and I don't think it will. I'm curious to see how it will go because, it's not. I don't think it's sustainable long term. So like looking at Apple, it's they study that very meticulously. I think they're kind of like the masters of that, and they make sure that maintaining a sub brand is the exception, not the rule. Right. So with Beats, for instance, I think Beats was such an iconic brand in and of itself. I think it would have represented a bit of a loss to the world. Like I think I remember in high school or what, you were the coolest kid if you had didn't matter what the sound really was. Obviously, we know it's like pumping bass like crazy. But I think that was worth protecting because it also gave them notoriety into the segment of the market, that was very much behind Beats, right? Yeah. PreSonus doesn't have that, no disrespect. So again, trying to see it different ways, still doesn't really make sense, to be honest.
So I'm gonna add a bit more information onto this now, especially as a software guy.
Yeah.
Have you ever used a PreSonus Studio One?
I use it frequently to test our plugins, actually.
Okay.
And just this week, I was using Fender Studio One to test, Diamond B, which is coming out soon.
Yeah. So on the topic of the software, let me give some information on this, which is January 13th, 2026. Fender has officially retired PreSonus Studio One. Everything is going to be rebranded as Fender Studio 8, Fender Studio Pro plus Fender Studio 8. There's like a bunch of different versions, whether you're buying it or whether it's a subscription.
Even to get my NFR license, I was super confused. I had to go through like 3 different forms to be like, okay, what do I need to get to test this plugin?
Yeah.
It was an experience.
Yeah. And on the Fender Studio Pro Plus ecosystem, I want to show you some stuff so that we can, first of all, as we just mentioned, there's a subscription which you can pay monthly or yearly, or you can buy the DAW outright. But if you buy the DAW outright, you don't get access to, for example, like I think some of the samples or some of the, you don't get access to the VSTs and stuff like that. The pricing, I have it ready over here.
Yeah.
Fender Studio Pro, $270 to buy outright. This is Canadian dollars, by the way.
Nice.
$225 a year for the license, which comes with the plugins and the amp modeling and all that cool stuff.
Okay.
Which is, you can buy it outright for pretty much the same price, but obviously you don't get all those additional perks. Or monthly cost of $25 a month.
Okay.
A new DAW in the space. Half the cost, more or less, of Pro Tools.
Yeah.
I know you're not a Pro Tools user, you're more of an Ableton guy.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, like, I think the amp modeling is very interesting because obviously, like, Fender makes their own amps. And so they own the circuitry. They are able to model it perfectly. So I think for a guitar player to be able to plug in their guitar and they have all the Fender amps in the box, that's really interesting. Is anyone going to really move into this world? Like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know either. That it goes to my confusion at this goes back to that. I think if you're a Studio One user, you will just obviously keep going with it. Like, there's nothing majorly wrong with the transition. Could be, I don't know, maybe someone watching has more context, and please feel free to chime in the comments. But I certainly don't see the play here in terms of, like, what is this adding in terms of, like, key things, right? Like, that makes me from Ableton want to go to Studio One, or makes anyone jump from any other DAW, right? I think DAWs are already they're sort of part of your identity as a music creator. Yeah. So it takes quite a lot for people to switch, especially if there's no benefits or no, like, obvious gain. Unless I keep mentioning this mythical new DAW that I'm waiting to see, you know? I think in a future episode, I definitely want to explore more experimental DAWs, because I know a few people working on very cool DAWs. I know it's, they still have their sanity, but let's see for how long. But to me, it's like, I don't know. It kind of goes back to what I was discussing last episode too, right? Like, I don't see any innovation coming from these moves of, like, a company acquiring another, or private equity buyouts and things like that. So to me, again, I don't get why you would suddenly want to be a Studio One user if you already were not.
Yeah. I want to move on to Fender as a lifestyle brand.
Okay, yeah, this is where I'm very, very intrigued.
So first of all, I want to start with the fact that the lifestyle brand of Fender is called Fender Audio.
Okay.
Which is not the
Fender.
Which is not the interface brand.
Okay.
The interface brand falls under Fender.
Okay.
And then Fender Audio
is not an audio company.
No, is the lifestyle brand.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah,
can we define lifestyle brand here, just
Okay.
so I'm on the same
for sure.
we're on the same page.
So I think the best comparison for this is Marshall. So Marshall in 2010, they partnered with the Swedish company called Azound Industries.
Okay.
They licensed their brand name and they started making headphones. They started
Yeah.
making Bluetooth speakers,
which are very good, by the way. As far as Bluetooth speakers go, I was quite impressed.
So that is the lifestyle brand of Marshall. It's not necessarily like t-shirts and stuff like that, but it's more things that people will take on the go.
Yeah, you'll pick up the Bay, or actually RIP the Bay.
Yeah.
Where would you pick that up today?
Yeah. Pick it up somewhere.
Yeah, Best Buy.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
They're still around, right?
They're still around, yeah. For now, until they get bought by some other company.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting stat on the Marshall thing, which actually blew my mind when I was researching this, is that today, as of 2024, 2025, 95% of Marshall's revenue comes from their lifestyle side of the company.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Only 5% comes from the guitar amplifiers.
Does not surprise me at all.
Yeah. So Fender is, I think, probably following this business model a little bit. And they have released, in 2026, they have released 3 products. So I'm just going to pull it up over here. Fender Audio, the lifestyle brand. They have 3 products. They have, I don't know how to pronounce this, Ellie
en français,
which is a portable Bluetooth speaker. They have the 6 and the 12. And then they have the Mix, which is the headphones. And according to The Verge CES 2026, these headphones won their category for best headphone.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
maybe like AirPods Max and...
Yeah, I think obviously it needs to be a new release.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I believe. But still.
You know who we need to check this? Have you heard of, what are they called? Ratings? It's like short for ratings. They're actually a Montreal-based group.
Oh.
I'm sure someone watching this knows what I'm talking about. Ratings.com, I think. Bit of a tangent here.
Yeah,
but
go
they have like the most scientifically sound reviews of consumer products. So I'd be curious to check out Ratings. I think we could do this later on. But they would measure, for instance, like they would in their review of TVs, for instance, they would actually have like different kinds of laser and lights pointed at the TV at different angles to measure like how reflective that screen is and give it like a specific score based on that. Their review of audio products is also super like intricate and accurate. So yeah, just fun fact. Ratings, that's my source, my go-to for audio hardware reviews.
Okay, I think we have. Is Ratings there? Is it up here?
Yeah, and I think they're based in Montreal too.
What do they say about the Fender Mix headphones? We got Priam in the behind the scenes doing some research for us. It looks like we have this TV over here, but it's just Priam on his phone.
Next time we'll get something going. We never heard of Ratings?
No,
dude.
Yeah, Ratings.com, Ratings.ca.
Yeah, they're huge. They'll just write Ratings and they'll be the first thing to pop up.
You don't have I don't see the Fender, but I have the 8 best studio headphones for mixing and recording 2026.
Yeah.
Or if you want Bear Dynamic DTs, all those reviews, or the 7 best open back, or the 5 best podcasts.
Okay, but the point is that they're not on the top.
They're not
the Fender ones are not. They're not there yet, but they were released in 2026, so they're relatively new.
Yeah, they probably need some time to make it there, but interesting. So Fender. So now I'm gonna have to decide not between Marshall and Fender amps, but between Marshall and Fender Bluetooth speakers
and headphones.
Yeah, like which one will I use at my barbecues and pool parties when it's finally nice out again?
Yeah, and so we talked about the success story of Marshall, but I want to talk about the failure of Gibson now.
Ooh.
Because Gibson tried to pull off a very similar thing to Marshall. Kind of. They bought a bunch of companies. So a couple of years back, like about a decade ago, Gibson bought a bunch of lifestyle products, including Philips Audio Division, TEAC, TEAC, which owns Tascam, Esoteric, and a bunch of TEAC as well as Onkyo. I think they tried to move into the same business model as Marshall. They did it differently. Instead of licensing their own name, they bought lifestyle brand companies that did like the Bluetooth and the consumer speakers. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So they attempted a very similar move, but had kind of like the opposite result. So it seems like Fender has decided to use their own name, and I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I think this is an interesting move. Fender in 2026 making very big changes to the company. Some people have said it's like the biggest change to the company of Fender in like decades, by entering the lifestyle brand, by entering the what I'm going to call the Fender audio brand, the the interfaces and stuff, and obviously they're retaining their guitars and their amplifiers.
Dude, that for sure has to be a mistake. Someone mixed up like a, a file name somewhere and it just stuck.
Yeah, and then people kept making the mistake over and over again until it landed on the website, and then everyone's like,
yeah. But in a way, I suppose, it's like it's still audio products, it's just for consumers, I guess. So yeah, I'm not too appalled.
Yeah. So we wish Fender the best. Obviously we want our industry to succeed.
Yeah.
So speaking of our industry succeeding, should we talk about Native Instruments?
Yeah, Native Instruments. So where do we start? So everyone has heard of it at this point. I don't think I have any groundbreaking news. I'm not privy to any private information.
Insider information.
Yeah, sorry guys. Especially because obviously Native Instruments is privately owned, so there's very little regulatory requirements for them to make this information public. Mm-hmm. But in this instance, they're starting preliminary insolvency proceedings in Germany, which is where the company is headquartered. And I was looking this up on YouTube, just trying to see the YouTubers I follow, what they think of it. And you're inundated with dozens, if not hundreds of people freaking out. What does it mean? Should we throw all our Native Instruments, in the trash? Like, is this dead software at this point? What does it mean for the audio industry and all that? And I think, those are all valid questions. And I think the thoughts I kind of want to bring today are centered around two things. What does it mean for Native Instruments to file for preliminary insolvency? What does that mean to consumers, right? Their customers, all of us, pretty much anyone doing audio is at one point or another a Native Instruments customer. But also, what does it mean to us as audio software makers also, right? And I want to tie this to our last episode where I discussed sort of the trends that we're seeing as audio software makers. But first, I think let's, maybe you haven't watched another video discussing this, or somehow you haven't heard the news or haven't read our newsletter.
Yeah.
But yeah, Native Instruments obviously doesn't need an introduction, right? Founded in 1999, legendary audio software company. They're, one of the pioneers of audio, the audio software we all use and love. Massive, the synthesizer, Reactor, Contact, guitar rig, if you're a DJ, Tractor, the list goes on and on. A huge household name. And so for them, looking at kind of the status they have and reading the news, insolvency, preliminary insolvency, it's almost like, what the hell happened, right? And so, yeah, justifiably big news. But I think at the same time, I'll speak from a personal experience, but I think it's a shared experience also. My very first big software purchase as a new music producer, I think when I was probably at McGill together, was the complete library. So I don't know how many hundreds of dollars. It was hefty, but it was something incredibly valuable to start with, right? You get all these plugins, all these sample packs and all that. And you felt like you were putting your hand on quality and innovative material, right? And their hardware is always top quality and top notch. But that was in like 2015, 2016. And I think everyone who is a Native Instruments fan, and I'm very much speaking from the perspective of a fan, right? So I think some of the stuff I'll say later as a music software creator might sound like tough or harsh, but I'm saddened by this at the end of the day. I think like a lot of people, that they're struggling, but I try to look at it objectively too, right? And the reality is this, that Native Instrument has not innovated in probably a decade, right? Like, sure, they've done the complete control, like refreshes on their hardware. We have the Machine Plus, the standalone version of Machine, which I thought was super awesome, but they kind of stopped listening to any feedback on any of the shortcomings that people were bringing to the front, to the fore. And yeah, to me, it's like, okay, where's the innovation, right? Like, we're showing glimmers here and there, but nothing in terms of actually bringing something new to the table. And I think it's a shame, because for a while, Native Instruments represented that, right? They kind of tried to compete with Splice for a little bit, with sounds.com. That experiment failed. So I think I can go through a list, right, of events and mishaps on on the part of Native Instruments, where I think they showed that they can neither enter new areas of business, so trying to compete with Splice in the sample pack and sphere arena, nor build on the flagship products that they have. So massive, huge flagship product, followed up with Massive X, a huge flop, right? Absinthe, massive, synth plugin. Well, no pun intended. I said massive, but very, very popular. Pretty much no follow up to that. I think they discontinued it for a bit, and then they dropped the Absinthe version 6, and then at that point, completely fizzled out. The point being, they've really been struggling for a while, I think, as from the perspective of a customer. So to hear this news, as, shocking as I think, the audio content creators are trying to make it seem, I don't think it surprises anyone, right? And it's unfortunate, but now I think it's time to really try to look at this objectively, right? So what does it mean to their customers? I think for now, it's pretty much a non-event. Don't go uninstalling your Native Instrument plugins right away, because I think let's maybe qualify what preliminary insolvency means in Germany. It means that the company is no longer able to pay its debt, and this is probably a mix of their financial struggles, but it's also, I think there's definitely a component of the economy there, right? Like, people have less disposable income to spend on plugins, and if you're not a non-professional, at least. But ultimately, I think the business is still running. Preliminary insolvency doesn't mean bankruptcy, so they don't have to liquidate any assets. They're not obliged to fire anyone or sell any intellectual property, any physical property assets that they may own. But what's happening right now is that a German court has appointed essentially an interim CEO, an officer that will oversee the operations of the company, but it should operate as it has, right? And one key thing that we have to note is that back in December, Native Instruments was actually approved by the European Commission to be acquired by another private equity firm, but that ended up fizzling out. So that was just in December, and they're filing for preliminary insolvency now. We don't know any of the details, but
because it's all private, right?
Exactly, but from the the close proximity of those two events, we can definitely deduce that they're kind of related, right? That Francisco Partners probably doesn't want to, this asset anymore. Are they, I don't want to say like forcing this insolvency just so that, someone else takes care of the business for them, or I don't know, right? I don't have any insider information. So
I think it's important to separate the business model that is Native Instruments and the reason why they are in preliminary insolvency. And the reason why they're in preliminary insolvency, I don't think has anything to do with their business model. I think the reason why they're in preliminary insolvency is because they made a lot of purchases, right? They purchased what's the list of companies?
Yeah, Isotope, Brainworks, Plugin Alliance. Well, there was the whole SoundWide episode that I didn't get into.
Yeah, that all happened in the last 4 years.
Yeah, like 5 years for sure.
I don't think that they're in preliminary insolvency because the business model doesn't work. I think they're in preliminary insolvency because of these purchases.
Well, that's what we don't know, right? I think to be honest, John, I think it's probably both.
You think so?
Yeah. So this is where I think I was going to talk about this next as what it means to us music makers. But I think this next point I want to make is probably both a conversation for us music software makers and consumers, which is, think about it. It's kind of, yes, it's sad, and some of us are surprised that a big company like Native Instruments is not just insolvent, but I think they haven't recorded a profit in the last few years also. So their business is struggling, I think, factually.
Is that prior to 2020? Prior to 2020, though? Like prior to them having
since 2020, yeah.
Since they've purchased.
Yeah, I don't know about their sub-brands, but the point I'm trying to make is, I think the business model of audio software is still largely driven by one-time purchases.
Right.
And I think us, me included, whether you're on the music creation side, whether you're on the audio engineering side, I think we're pretty much allergic to subscriptions, right? Which to me creates this conundrum that we expect lifetime value, but we don't want lifetime commitment to helping create that value, if you think about it, right? So, and I think this comes from a misplaced expectation that software, you buy it once and it runs forever, right? And this is neither realistic from, the way software is maintained and built, but also creates unhealthy businesses, right? So I think that's why Native Instruments probably wanted to get into sounds.com and into the
subscription business model.
Exactly. Yeah. But because ultimately, if, at some point when you're a household name, you've run out of people who are new to your brand, right? Like Native Instruments, probably literally everyone who makes music has Native Instruments software, right? That hopefully they bought, right? But what that creates, when you get to that size, it creates also an issue where to tap into new markets, there are none, right? Like at this point, like new people who don't own Native Instruments are literally people who don't make music. So you're trying to, maybe this is what's happening with Fender too, and so on. So that's why you go into
new markets,
lifestyle brands, consumer, beginner software. But to me, it's almost like a chicken and egg problem where we're surprised that Native Instruments is struggling. But when's the last time you paid for Native Instruments software that you own, right? You bought it 10 years ago and it's still running on your Mac OS 26, but obviously the salaries and the resources that went into the development to maintain it to this day, you as a customer haven't contributed to that, right? So not to put, I'm part of that, right? Like I'm not saying, hey, let's all go into subscription models, but I think that's part of it for sure. It has to be, because I think fundamentally the structure of plug-in businesses are kind of weakened by that, I think, by this reluctance. And obviously you could make analogies, right? But with hardware, it doesn't work that way. But hardware still has to be maintained, right? Like your car will break down at some point, right? And software also breaks down without maintenance and ongoing support. There's a term for that, like us developers, we talk about bit rot, right? So bit rotten code. The natural tendency of code in nature is that it gets worse over time, right? The world is chaotic, things change, new software updates come to your operating system, new hardware. So code needs to follow that, right? I think I've made my point, right? So I think that's definitely part of it. And now thinking about what it means for us audio software makers, I was definitely talking about this in the last episode, where 2025 was a very bad year for the plugin business, right? We've seen fewer and fewer big flagship successful launches, right? I think I mentioned maybe Omnisphere being Omnisphere and Serum were the outliers, but I don't remember. It must be like recency bias, but I do remember there were more exciting stuff coming out. I think obviously there's a lot of AI this and AI that. FabFilter always, coming up with banger releases. But the issue is we see more and more discounts, big bundles, news of acquisitions than actual innovation. And I think with this news, it confirms this even more. Like it's not a 2025 thing. It's like a proper trend and a proper force that big audio companies in our space are no longer in the business of innovation. They're in the business of survival. And I'm I both have feelings about this. Like I said, I'm a fan of these companies. So it sucks to see. But I'm also, we also have our own company, right? Time Off Audio. And to me, I think it represents an opportunity because the way I think about our plugins, right? We talk about this a lot is, so Dime TT, Dime MS, Dime MB. I don't think that we're competing with other plugins. Not at all, actually. I think we're competing with DAWs. And this is both, I'm probably like sharing this thought with the outside world for the first time, right? So you've heard it before, right? But it's both, I think, slightly an opportunistic thing because I think the plugin space is entirely saturated. And there's, me personally, I don't rarely get excited by new plugins anymore. We've seen every size, shape, color of reverbs, compressors, de-essers, you name it, right? We've seen it all. But when you think about workflows, right? When you think about the different needs that people have, I think in the audio space, whether you're on the creation, recording, performance, engineering, I think a lot of that has gone unaddressed. And I think companies like Native Instruments are paying the price of that, to be honest. So for me, just thinking about like genuinely wanting to create something exciting and useful, my thought was never, I need to make plugins because there's enough of those, right? The fact we have plugins are simply almost just there to fill the gap where DAWs are not providing value, right? So how can we create complex workflows and like complex multi-band chains in a way that is fun and like doesn't feel tedious, right? So I think to me, that's where our plugins fit. We're basically filling the gap that DAWs aren't filling anymore. Because DAWs are provided mostly by these large companies who don't move as quick and they're kind of becoming sluggish and so it's definitely opportunistic on my end, but at the same time, it's where I think we should see more stuff happen, more action happen. And I know for a fact that's where there will be more action happening, like in 2026. There was this super cool plugin that just came out called Snappy Snap. I think I shared it with you.
To me.
Yeah, it's really dope. It's along the line of meta plugin hosting and doing a lot of cool stuff with it. It even lets you prompt your plugins via like an MCP server, which is a way to have that plugin be able to work with ChatGPT and Claude and things like that. I think that's just the beginning of the stuff you can do. But yeah, as a plugin maker, well, I don't want to define myself as a plugin maker, like I was saying, but as a audio software maker, I'm kind of tempted to say it's sort of good news. At least it confirms the intuition I've had going into this with Time Off Audio. Let's see how it goes from here.
I want to go back to the subscription thing, because I think that a lot of people will not pay for it. Although at the same time, there's a lot of DAWs that have subscription models now. We just talked about Fender today.
Yeah, Logic too, right? Apple just announced
the Creator Studio, right?
Yeah, but it's part of a bundle, and you have to get Final Cut Pro and stuff.
So I wonder though, for plugin developers, how much that's going to continue to be included within the DAW, where DAWs, because they're on a subscription model, and we've seen this with Pro Tools, they start including more offerings within the DAW themselves, and so all of a sudden, and it's not like it doesn't exist. There are plugin developers that have subscription models.
Yeah, as well. Rent to own and things like that. Yeah.
But I think we would be hard pressed to. This is a discussion that Mo have had a lot, by the way, and it's the one that we're going to continue having. But to have a subscription model, I think it's challenging, especially obviously for a small software company, because like I guess we could license our plugins to like a bigger distributor and have like an independent license model where you can pay like X amount a month, and then you have like a ton of like independent plugins.
Yeah,
right. That's an idea. But if you're not getting like a lot of value, like an entire DAW, I think it'll be challenging to have a subscription model.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think there are legitimate frictions to subscription model, right? One I feel as a developer is if you offer a plugin with a subscription, now it complicates the delivery of that product, where that product essentially needs to constantly be connected to your infrastructure, right? It needs to talk to our servers to check the status of the license. You need payment infrastructure that's ongoing. And I think even as a developer, it complicates your delivery, right? Like for us, it's way simpler to have you come to our website once, get the plugin. Thank you very much. Enjoy, and we'll see you with software updates, hopefully. But
happy mixing, happy producing.
Exactly. Enjoy, and we'll see you with the V2, hopefully. Exactly. People are still, I think there's a mixture of reluctance with having plugins use the internet.
Yeah.
I think that's an old school thing. Our plugins do offline activation. Well, one-time online activation. So you connect to the internet, activate it once, and then it works forever on that machine. But I just think audio is just lagging in terms of digital culture, let's say. I think you video people are way more advanced in that, just embracing the cloud a lot more. And I think, again, it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Because companies are kind of like treat the most reluctant of their customer base as the source of truth, which makes them move less
into that space.
Space. And it's a self-reinforcing pattern. And then it creates you don't have companies doing crazy new stuff, right? And yeah, I think the way I see it, I try to be balanced, right? So try to bring some new stuff, but do it in a way that's stable and reliable, because we've somehow come to equate plugins that are like online first or digital first or modern with plugins that may be unreliable, or I don't know if this company is going to be around in a year or two. And those are all valid.
Yeah.
But they need to be challenged little by little.
Because every company was a small company getting started.
Exactly, yeah. So for us to offer subscription, I think it's definitely something I want us to do, to be honest. I just want to do it the right way and yeah, offer it when it makes sense. But I will also say that there's also this association in our space between subscriptions and constantly new content, right? And I think, again, I get where it comes from, but I think a lot of the time we need to challenge that, and we need to educate our customer base into understanding that not because you don't have a new feature that work hasn't been put in the plugin, right?
Maintenance and servers.
Exactly. And just like the plugin itself, I think you can entirely overhaul the DSP engine and make it 5 times more performant. At some point you won't be able to get those gains, but when you're a new company and tinkering a lot, the interface will still be exactly the same. The file will look the same to you. Nothing will change, and you will question why are you charging me more for this? It's the same thing, right? And I think it's unfortunate because it comes from a complete, I don't want to say incomplete. I don't want to be harsh either. I think a lot of people have an appreciation for this, but yeah, maybe an underappreciation of the work that goes into maintaining plugins and making them work, every day and making them reliable. So again, I think we need to walk and be balanced about it, and obviously always listen and respond to feedback, offer new features. It's not always going to be new content, right?
Yeah.
I think we should definitely do another episode just dedicated to this, because I was reading an article about this, like a editorial piece. I think there's this process that we're seeing more and more in software because companies feel obliged to offer new features. It creates this process. I think I need to find who coined this term, but it's called enshittification.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we need to bleep this. I don't think we have to, but look at Instagram, right? Like, are you keeping track of all the features they release every day? Like, what the F, right?
Yeah.
Like, we all use it for DMs, stories, Reels. A lot of it, they're copying other plugins. Imagine Instagram plugins. Instagram, they're copying other apps, sometimes very successfully, right? Stories, it wasn't them. It was Snapchat, right?
Yeah.
Reels wasn't them. It was TikTok, right? DMs was post messenger acquisition, right?
Enshittification, coined by author Cory Doctorow.
There you go.
There we go.
We need a full episode on this dedicated to enshittification and audio.
Ooh.
Because
I like that.
Yeah. Because I think it's kind of, it needs its own episode. Yeah. I'll probably slow down there, because I have lots of thoughts on this. I'm a bit of a technology optimist, right? Just in general, audio or not.
I'm on the same page.
But seeing this trend does make me a little pessimistic, to be honest. But I'll leave it there, and we'll discuss this on another occasion. But those are my thoughts, man. I know it was a bit rambly at times, but hopefully, it gives people perspective that I'm trying to have, looking at news like Native Instrument, right? Where I think it is an event, noteworthy event. I'm trying to see the actual objective, overall view of it. The Native Instruments, I'm very curious to see how it's going to go, but the trends there, I think, are, they're bigger than Native Instruments at the end of the day.
Yeah. For anyone who's worried about the plugins, as you mentioned, everyone is kind of like freaking out online. I do want to draw a parallel with Gibson, because we
Okay.
just talked about the
Yeah,
fact
yeah,
that
yeah.
Gibson filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they had a very similar thing, right? They purchased a bunch of companies, and then shortly thereafter, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is essentially for the same reason, because their monthly debt was more than their monthly income, right?
Yeah.
And so they essentially, their operation was no longer working. Gibson is still around.
Mm.
Right, Gibson is
Yeah,
still
yeah.
around. I did a little bit of research coming into the conversation. They trimmed the fat. They went back to the basics. They stopped the lifestyle thing that wasn't working for them. I don't know if you guys have seen a lifestyle Gibson thing around. I haven't. And they're doing better now, right? And
Yeah.
so I feel like this news, and obviously it's this big headline, and everyone can get a little bit worried. But ultimately, they're restructuring. They have a new CEO. They're probably going to go back to basics. They're going to have to figure out their debt payments, whatever,
Yeah.
But I don't think Native Instruments are going anywhere. I think they're sticking around.
Yeah, hopefully, even if it means them shrinking, and obviously it could be bad news for some of their employees
Yeah.
and all of that. But I think sometimes growing for the sake of growing, which is what a lot of outside investors tend to do, right? They see you as a financial asset as a company, right? And I think that's why you need to be very careful into following growth of any kind. I tend to be super conservative when it comes to that, right?
Yeah.
Like for people who know or might not know, like we're fully privately owned, right? You and me. You'd have to convince me very hardly to become an investor at this point, because I don't want the incentive of growth to come from anything outside of my own and our own. But obviously, sometimes there's an opportunity, and I can understand also trying to push for that. But yeah, capitalism doing its thing sometimes, and it's also not fully a bug; it's a feature, right? Like you see this in nature almost, right? Like you have systems that grow and then they shrink, and maybe another episode on that too, right? Like parallels between how we see like the audio ecosystem versus like other ecosystems evolve. It's part of being in this business, right? We will keep seeing these events unfold.
Cool.
Keep it there.
We'll have another episode coming soon where we're going to continue talking about the state of the music industry.
Yeah.
So make sure to follow along in whatever platform it is that you follow. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. What was the name of that podcast platform that guy?
Yeah, someone was requesting us somewhere obscure.
Wasn't it Podcast Parrot or something like that? Parrot Cast.
Dude, I don't even know.
Anyways, you can follow us on that as well.
But we're there too, right?
Yeah, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
we're everywhere. Well, almost everywhere. We're almost everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for watching.
Peace.